welcome again. Here we are at the rebuild shop. It's at Nanton Aviation Station, Season 3, Show 6. We have our benefactor and special guest today, Karl Kjarsgaard, who's dropped into the shop to check in on us and see how we're doing. Good to see you again, Karl.
Well, thanks for inviting me back, and I'm really interested in this new phase. Can you tell me about what we're going on to now that the main spar is almost 100% complete?
Absolutely. We've now moved into the next phase, 3 Alpha. We've broken phase 3 into a series of sub-phases. Alpha will include the reconditioning of the wing ribs, the ones that we have. They're in a variety of states of disrepair. Some of them are quite good, like this one. This rib is quite usable. It has been cut in a couple of places, but otherwise corrosion is nominal, and we just have to do some minor repairs, and it's a usable rib. We also have to make some new ribs as well in this phase because some of them are just that far gone or virtually non-existent.
So phase 3 Alpha is the wing rib rebuild using good ribs that we have, and there are also some ribs that maybe need some real good repair, and then there's some we're going to have to reconstruct. And how many ribs are there, and what do you see for working on the ribs? Are you going to work on the really good ones first?
Yeah, there's 10 ribs in total. 8 are usable, 4 are very usable, and 2 are going to have to be new build from scratch. So that's, like I say, there's quite a variety of different rib conditions, but this one will be not a problem. We'll be able to use this one. Like I say, the corrosion is nominal, not a problem at all. And maybe you can describe for the viewers where the ribs go in relation to the front spar that's behind you.
Sure. Okay, well, a simplistic diagram. If this is the 30-foot long main spar that's about 4 feet high, it's the backbone of the Halifax project, then you would have a rib here is this, and you would have your center ribs through the very middle of this main spar attached on the end, and the ribs would come out like this every 3 feet or so, and there would be 10 of them all the way down the main spar. This is the main spar. And then along the back of each rib will be the rear spar. And the rear spar is just over there, just not 5 feet from us. But that is the entire center section wing box. So now we've got the main spar done, as per you and George working on that. Phase 3 Alpha are these babies, 10 of them here. So it's starting to take shape, but obviously many weeks to go.
Yeah. Absolutely. The analogy I'm using is that this is the spar behind you, and in essence, what's going to happen is each rib is going to go onto the spar, and this will look like a comb. In essence, there'll be the flying direction is more or less into the floor, if you will.
So the ribs will be, these big ribs here will be going up like this. And then up high, if you could imagine, the rear spar attaches to the back of the rows of the ribs. And that's your big, huge wing box of a Halifax.
Exactly. I think I'm excited and anxious about this phase because we'll be able, in essence, to start to make the wing look like a wing again. You know, we'll be able to locate temporarily at least some of the ribs, relocate them, and it'll start to look again like a wing. Again, as you say, a slow process, but we're in that phase of reconstruction, well into the reconstruction versus dismantling and reconditioning, right? So it's nice that it always gives me a little added incentive because we can see things starting to come back together again.
Sure, and you know, like it's been done before where they've taken a Hastings center section and modified it in England. What we're doing is going an extra step of we are taking this center section, modifying, rebuilding, and we're going to try and be, as best we can, close to a Halifax profile as is possible.
Exactly. They're virtually the same wing. I mean, they do differ in some small ways, but as you say, where they do differ, we're going to do our best to replicate the Halifax wing.
Now, Scott, tell me about, this is a sort of a standard wing rib of the 10 wing ribs that are in the center section, but there are some skookum wing ribs that are near the center of the aircraft. They're like double ribs. And what is their function? Those extra super big, strong ribs they're actually twice as thick as these.
Well, they basically form the nacelle. So you've got the motor mount and the undercarriage all connected to those two ribs. And there's also the different mechanisms for extending and retracting the main gear that are attached to the rear spar. And so those spars, which are up top and up in the mezzanine, are much beefier than these. I would say, if you had to say a factor of 2 to 3 times stronger.
Wow. Yeah, so obviously the very core of the airplane with those inboard engines and landing gear right underneath, it requires that double, triple extra strength of those ribs. So it's not just 10 ribs all in a row.
That's correct, yeah. They're very close to one another, but each is designed to carry specific loads. And absolutely, you're right. I mean, there are some ribs that are much beefier to carry the added load of the nacelle, engine, and undercarriage, absolutely.
Sure. Well, this has kind of been a transition period where we've finished phase 2, which is basically having the main spar all done except for attachment points. But now, moving on to 3 Alpha, which is your wing ribs, and we've described that. But tell me about, just give me a quick overview on 3 Bravo. And obviously we're getting into the rear spar area.
Yeah, 3 Bravo will entail reconditioning of the rear spar. So we've got to take the rear spar that we recovered from this salvaged wing and completely rebuild it. Now, it's got a lot of corrosion, and it is in essence one long 30-foot section, so there's not much of that original construction that we'll be able to use, unfortunately, but we will be able to use it as templates and a starting point, at least for the new build. It's going to be virtually new build, and there's going to be some new extrusion from your friends at Sprung Structures.
That's right, and I think we should add this in here. As you and your guys are working on the wing ribs, I have been doing progress out in the field, and I went to Sprung. I showed them the blueprints of the rear spar profile, and they said, yes, we can manufacture for you. That we will make a die, we will extrude the rear spar cap, upper and lower, and we can give that to you. And so for you folks that are really keen on helping us, I would say the price was quoted at $5,400 for 2 sets of rear spars for 2 Halifax bombers for $5,400. So if we could just get those rear spar caps manufactured, which, we've done before, is getting the spar caps for the main. Now the rear spar caps, $5,400 is not that much for getting 2 sets of rear spars for 2 Halifaxes. And it's almost like we're getting a reserve of parts that at some point when someone decides they want to rebuild a Halifax, who are you going to call? The Halifax guys.
Yeah, that's a good point, Carl. Those rear caps or booms are integral to this rebuild, and without them, we won't be able to move forward. So yes, any help we can get, we much appreciate it in that regard, absolutely.
Sure, we've raised half the money of the $5,400, but we still need donations towards this manufacture of these Halifax rear spar caps. So it's just an appeal for you folks that are keen to help us.
Great, Carl. Well, I think that pretty well covers everything. Hopefully, when you come back next time, you'll see some completed, painted ribs looking good and ready to go back on the spar.
Great. Thanks, Scott. And I'm excited about all of this Phase 3 Alpha, so let's keep her rolling.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And please Support us as and when you can. Take care.